So part 2 here is character and entrance. So entrance is a huge, huge thing for me, but I want to start with character. When it comes to a character, and again, this can be called a gimmick as well, the best type of character is one that you as a performer can feel most confidence about. That is what it comes down to. It doesn't have to be something that's completely detached from you as a person. It can be an element of yourself that you're going to turn up to 11. I've heard that 1,000 times. Yes. That drives me nuts. But in this context, it can be an element, a real life element that you're like, oh, I'm going to put all my eggs in that basket. It can be something from pop culture. It can be something that just speaks to you or an experience that you've had or your favorite thing or whatever. But it needs to be something you can be 100% confident in. Because if you're not, that's going to read immediately to a crowd. If you're like, well, somebody told me I had to be this character, and so that's what I'm going to be, and I guess I'm going to do it because they told me to do it, and if I don't do it, they're going to get mad at me, so I'm going to... Well, that's not going to come across as genuine at all. Mm-hmm. Now, in some cases, can a character be an escape for you? Sure. Just because you happen to be, this big flamboyant character or blah, 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 that doesn't mean that has to be your life.
Yeah.
But whatever it is that you want to be as a character... Whether it be, I'm a hard... I'll give you a perfect example. Dominic Garrini is a wrestler that I've followed for a long, long time, and I really, really like his stuff. He is genuinely in the top 10 Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighters in the world. Like, legitimately. He's got the trophies and everything to back it up. Legitimately that. So that's what he leaned into as his character when he became a wrestler. He was like, I'm not going to completely change who I am as a person. I'm leaning into, there is nobody who can outfight me in this style. I am the guy. Mm-hmm. And so his gear matches that. His attitude matches that. He didn't come out and go like, I'm the firefighter guy. He went with something that he knew and he could be confident in.
Yes.
And as such, that reads super clearly whenever he's having a match. And so it doesn't have to be something from pop culture. If there's an element of yourself that you can really lean into, then that's perfectly fine. And I actually have a quote here from the Punk Pro Fully Gimmick champion, John Davis. And I'm just going to read it for verbatim here. If you fancy yourself a tough guy, look in the mirror. Can you honestly look at yourself and believe that you can make everyone else believe in you? If not, second guess it. If you can, figure out a way that make that tough guy thing work in any situation that does not involve you no-selling someone. If you can't do that, then second guess it. Same goes with comedy characters. Same goes with a technical character. Always be able to work with anything. That makes you a commodity, not a copy. People want commodities. Commodities make money. Commodities always have jobs. So the bottom line is, if you have a character, whatever it is, even if it's something weird and offbeat or whatever, you need to commit to it. And I can't tell you how many times that I've been involved in wrestling shows or seen wrestling shows where there's just no commitments. It's just people, Effie once said, people pay to see commitment. So if you come out and you're like, hey, here's the thing, and I'm the guy, and okay, well, here we go, we're going to wrestle. That comes across clear as day, and you're not going to have people really want to invest in you when they see that you're not investing in yourself. And Brutal Bob Evans opened my eyes. By the way, I'm going to name drop as many times as I can on this. I want to really
all of them.
Just blame all of them for putting this stuff in my head. But Brutal Bob Evans opened my eyes to confidence problems in a lot of professional wrestlers, a lot of young wrestlers. They either are connecting their self-worth to a win-loss record, or they're just not confident. They're just not confident in the character or their performance ability.
Their weight. Like me.
So same here. And so the main focus is you have to. It may not feel, and if you want to fake it till you make it, and
like me,
fine, whatever. But you have to invest in yourself. You absolutely have to, because if you don't, how can you expect other people to invest in you? You have to sell that like you've never sold anything in your life. You have got to push that forward, because if you are not there to showcase, hey, this is who I am and this is who you have to believe in, then that is going to come across no matter what you're saying to people, no matter how you're wrestling. If you don't believe in whatever it is that you're trying to do, no one else is going to believe it. They have to go on the ride if you are leading the way. Now, to jump off of character for a moment. And again, if I'm going too fast, if anybody has any questions or anything like that, please throw in the chat. Nova here is my lifeguard. He is watching the chat. And so if there's any questions that pop up, he's going to throw them at me. But along those same lines of character is entrance, which I'm going to get into that in just a second. But one thing that Nova always brings up that I love is, so for me, anytime anyone ever asks me for advice about character or building or anything like that, I always typically go to pop culture stuff. I'm a big movie guy. So I'm always looking at that as like the main crux of like, oh, you could do this or you could take from this and all those other ideas. That's just always easy for me is I love watching movies and I love taking lines and all that good stuff. If you're going to do that, if you're going to go, oh, I watched this movie and I love this character and I'm going to kind of base my wrestling persona on that a little bit, that's perfectly fine and perfectly legitimate. However, don't be obvious about it. Don't be cringy about it. The running joke that you throw that always makes me laugh is anytime there's something that's like hot going on, you'll always bring up like, oh, who am I? I'm like the Mandalorian and the Joker mixed.
Oh, the
like,
Joker and Negan mix.
Yeah, that's hilarious because that's a real life thing. Is, don't make it too obvious. Don't be like, oh, I'm kind of like the Heath Joker Ledger. Yes. Heath Joker Ledger. I'm like Heath Joker Ledger that's my wrestling character. Heath Ledger Joker. Yeah, well, guess what? We've seen it 1,000 times and your impression is more insulting than anything else.
Now the new one is Thanos. Now everybody.
Yes.
Every season guy is Thanos now. And
yes.
Across every territory, you're going to have a Thanos.
They are all inevitable.
Yes.
But I will actually give you a real life example. So, Danny Burch, who's in NXT, he was on the indies for a while, known as Martin Stone. And we got to know Martin Stone and talk with him and really get to learn a lot from him. And so he's been a great wrestler forever. He's a very, very talented wrestler. And he's from England and is just a super, super talented dude. And so he came across a movie, and I'm blowing it up now because he's made it. He's on NXT and he's not doing this anymore.
He's got the deal. He made it.
He made it. He got the contract. He's got it. So I'm going to blow it up. There was a movie in 2009 called Bronson, and it stars, what is his name?
He was Bane.
Yes.
Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy, yes.
Tom Hardy.
Joseph Gordon-Hardy. Bruce Willis. Anyway, so Tom Hardy's in it, and it's a really interesting kind of character movie about this real-life criminal. And Martin Stone saw this and went, oh my God, that's it. And so he didn't rip it off. He didn't like grow a mustache and like, there's some weird stuff in that movie. Like he didn't grow a mustache and get oiled up and greased up and call people the C word. And so he didn't do that. But there were elements of the character about being, there's a tagline. It's like Britain's most dangerous prisoner, because it's this guy who changed his name to Charles Bronson and blah, 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 blah. He ended up costing England like the most money of any criminal, and he's been in solitary confinement for like 30 years. It's nuts. It's a great story. But there's some really interesting character moments and some interesting lines. And so Martin took that and he was like, okay, I can kind of include this a little bit and do this. And he kind of picked up some of the mannerisms and it gave him a focus and a direction to go with. But he didn't just go, I'm Charlie Bronson now. He took things that he liked and was like, okay. There's a quote that I got from Ophidian the Cobra, but it's not officially from him, of talent borrows and genius steals. And so if you see some elements that you like, feel free to incorporate that if it fits with what you're already doing. Don't be a Jackson Pollock painting of 1,000 different ideas.
If I may.
Yes, please.
Fair warning, to quote Jim Cornette. I learned from Jim Cornette that, yes, I learned from Jim Cornette.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a bold statement to start with.
A lot of figures in pro wrestling, but I learned this quote from him. If you steal from one, it's plagiarism. If you steal from multiple people or multiple things, it's research.
There you go. Perfect.
So, take bits and pieces of certain things and make it into your own.
100%. And actually, to go along with that, so one of the greatest talkers of all time and blah, blah, blah was Roddy Piper. And so Roddy Piper would keep a notebook with him of one-liners. He'd be at the supermarket and he would think of something and he'd be like, oh, there you go. That's a great line to use someday. All of his great quotes are all from that of like, you know, you don't throw rocks at a man with a machine gun, and just when they think they have all the answers, I change the questions, and blah, 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 blah. Just a litany of great lines from this guy that he always kept in a notebook. I tell every wrestler that I work with to do the same thing. You've got phones, have a notebook open, a notepad on your phone ready to throw in any kind of lines that you have. And the full fruition of that was awesome movie, They Live, made by John Carpenter. It stars Roddy Piper. John Carpenter is a very, very serious director in terms of he likes what he likes, and he's very hands-on, and he writes the dialogue and blah, 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 blah. For They Live, he let Roddy Piper come up with his own lines. He knew he had the notebook, and he was like, whatever you want, you put that in there. I'm trusting you on this. Wow. So the line that Duke Nukem aped, the line that everybody knows of I've come here to do two things, chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum, is from that notebook. Yes. John Carpenter did not come up with that line. That's a Roddy Piper original. So that is the apex. That's the peak of this sort of idea, to have things. And I'm going to give one away for free. I was listening to something. It was some stand-up comedian. I missed the entire joke. I only hit the punchline. And the punchline was, I'm going to keep doing this until the devil drags me to hell. That's a great line.
That's fire.
And if 1,000 people use that in a promo, I won't be offended. I won't charge you. That's a great line that I just whoop in my ear. And I was like, okay, here we go. Boop, 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 boop. And save it for a rainy day. Because something will happen. In a perfect world, you would have 6 months to plan for your promo, and you'd have production value and the whole 9 yards. Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, it's outside the venue. Hey, we need you to cut a promo in 10 minutes. Yeah. Having those kind of things at the ready can be a lifesaver. Can make it sound like you were prepared when you're not prepared. Yeah. So anytime you catch anything that comes and you're like, oh, that's a good line. Yeah. You don't have to cite your source. You don't have to be like, hey, I was watching the Power Rangers and Rita Repulsa said this real fire line and I wrote it down. You don't have to say that. There's no bibliography page on a promo. You just say what you got to say. So these are all elements of a character that can come from anywhere. Yeah. And there's no excuse to not have a character. There's no excuse to just come out and be like, I don't know, man, I wrestle and that's it. Not good enough. Yeah. Because again, it goes back to telling a story. Are you making it tougher for the crowd to connect? Perfect example. If you're supposed to be the underdog in a matchup, you've been booked that way. This is the story we're telling is one guy's a strong guy and you're the underdog. And that's not your character. Or your character's supposed to be that, but you're half-assing it. You don't want your match to be going halfway through before the crowd goes, oh, he's the underdog. We're supposed to be cheering for this guy. Yeah. That's not good. That hurts your performance. It hurts what you can actually put forth in the ring. So having a character is absolutely fundamental. Now, again, I say it for the 100th time. That doesn't mean you have to be a cartoon character. It doesn't mean you have to be this big 80s action over-the-top thing. You can be whoever it is that you feel you are, but you have to make it abundantly clear and you have to have confidence in it. Yeah. Because if you're like, oh, well, actually, I am, Thanos mixed with the Joker, and you tell it to somebody and they go, I've seen you wrestle 100 times and I've never picked that up at all. That's not good. That's not good. Oh, here's another quote from Effie so that I don't get heat for it. Trying your best, working hard, or having a dream are not gimmicks. Everybody in wrestling should be trying their best. Everybody's working hard, and everyone should have the dream of being a wrestler, or otherwise, why are you picking up a hobby that can give you brain damage? Those are not gimmicks. Those are just sort of general ideas. And when it comes to having a character, having a nebulous idea is not going to be the key. Yes, John Cena had Never Give Up. That's great. He was also contracted on the highest stage. There's no competition. When Burger King is... Okay, here's a perfect example. McDonald's, let's say, is the most popular, technically, food in the world. When chefs are going to culinary school, their aspiration is not, man, I'm going to make a Big Mac you have never seen, baby. No, they're like, I'm going to put finesse into it. And I'm going to create my own thing with it. So what works for WWE does not mean it's going to work for you on an independent level. It means that you got to figure your own shit out. And so trying hard, working hard, trying your best, and having a dream do not count as gimmicks. You need something more tangible than that, something more concrete that you can build from. Because otherwise, then you're having these weird conversations where you're like, well, what is your character? What am I building off of? Well, I mean, sometimes when I'm dreaming, okay, you've already lost me. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. We don't get to do a PowerPoint before the show happens. We have to just wrestle and tell the story there.